Please, don't leave me.
I made you a promise.
Then keep it.
On a night when the sky burned with 3 moons, something happened that had never happened before in 10,000 years of alien history. A queen's daughter, the most powerful princess in the galaxy, fell in love with a human man. Not a soldier, not a king, not even a noble. Just a man, a human. And when she walked into that palace, holding his hand in front of everyone, the entire room went silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Guards froze with their hands on their weapons. Nobles dropped their wine glasses. Even the queen herself, sitting on her throne of starlight, said nothing for almost a full minute. Because what the princess did next broke every law her family had ruled by for centuries. But here's what almost nobody knows. 3 secrets were hiding behind that silence. First, the real reason the princess chose a human, and it wasn't love at first sight. Second, what the queen almost did in that throne room, before she stopped herself. Third, the ancient law that said this kind of love was supposed to be impossible, and how one human man broke it without even knowing. This is the story of a princess, a human, and a secret that shook an entire empire. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Far away, past stars that humans have never seen, there was an empire called Velmora. It ruled over hundreds of planets. It had existed for 10,000 years, and it was run by one family, the royal bloodline of Queen Issavel. Queen Issavel was not just powerful. She was feared. Her ships could destroy a planet in 1 hour. Her armies never lost a war. And her family had one strict rule that every alien in the empire knew by heart. Royal blood could never mix with outsiders, especially not with humans. Humans, in the eyes of the Velmoran Empire, were seen as weak, small, simple, a young species that had barely left their own solar system. The Velmorans had technology that was thousands of years ahead. To them, humans were like children playing with toys, while the Velmorans held the keys to the stars. So when Queen Issavel had a daughter, she raised her to be perfect. Her name was Princess Anya. From the day she was born, she was trained to rule. She learned 7 languages before she was 10. She learned how to lead armies before she was 15. She learned how to speak to kings and queens from 100 different worlds without ever showing fear. But there was one thing Anya was never taught. She was never taught how to feel anything for anyone outside her own kind. That changed the day her ship crashed on Earth. It happened during a routine mission. Anya was traveling between 2 star systems when her ship hit something unexpected, a small asteroid field that wasn't on any map. Her engines failed. Her ship spun out of control. And within minutes, she was falling straight toward a small blue planet she had only read about in old reports. Earth. The crash was violent. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. And when the ship finally stopped moving, Anya was trapped inside, badly hurt, alone, and far from home. She expected to die there, alone, in a forest, on a planet full of people who wouldn't even know what she was. But then a human found her. His name was Daniel. He was not a soldier. He was not rich. He was a simple man who worked on a small farm outside a quiet American town. He had gone out that night to check on his animals when he saw the fire in the sky. At first, he thought it was a meteor. Then he saw the wreckage. Then he saw her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin had a soft golden shine under the moonlight. Her eyes glowed faintly, like tiny stars. She was clearly not human, but she was hurt, and she was scared. Daniel didn't run. He didn't call anyone. He didn't try to take a picture or tell the world what he found. He simply knelt down beside her and asked, "Are you okay?" Anya didn't understand his words at first, but she understood his tone. It was gentle. It was kind. It was nothing like the voices she had heard her whole life in the palace, voices full of orders, rules, and expectations. For the first time in her life, someone spoke to her not as a princess, but as a person. Daniel carried her to his home. He didn't have advanced medicine. He didn't have any of the healing technology from her world. All he had was clean water, warm blankets, and patience. He stayed up all night watching over her, making sure she kept breathing. When she finally woke up the next morning, the first thing she saw was his tired face, still sitting beside her bed. "You stayed," she whispered in broken English, a language she was quickly learning to understand through translation devices hidden in her suit. "Of course I stayed," Daniel said. "You needed help." It was such a simple answer, but it hit her harder than anything she had ever heard in her entire life. Because in her world, help was never simple. Help always came with a price. A favor owed. A political deal. A hidden motive. But this man expected nothing from her. He didn't know she was a princess. He didn't know her empire could destroy his entire planet in a single day. He just saw someone hurt, and he helped. That was the moment everything began to change for Anya. Over the next few weeks, Anya stayed hidden on Earth while her ship was repaired, using pieces of old alien technology mixed with simple human tools. It should have taken days. It took weeks. Because deep down, part of her didn't want to leave. She spent her time learning about human life. She watched Daniel work on his farm every morning. She watched him talk to his neighbors with kindness. She watched him share his food with people who had less than him, even when he didn't have much himself. None of this made sense to her at first. In her world, power was everything. If you had power, you used it. You never gave anything away without expecting something back. But Daniel gave and gave, without ever asking what he would get in return. One evening, she asked him directly, "Why do you help people who cannot help you back?" Daniel looked at her like the answer was obvious. "Because that's what good people do," he said. "You don't help someone because you'll get something. You help because it's the right thing to do." Anya stayed quiet for a long time after that. Slowly, without either of them planning it, something began to grow between them. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't dramatic. It was small moments, sharing a meal, watching the sunset, laughing at something silly, sitting quietly together after a long day. Daniel began to notice things about her too. Not just her strange glowing skin or her incredible strength, which she tried to hide. He noticed how she asked questions like a child seeing the world for the first time. He noticed how she smiled more each day. He noticed how, underneath all her training and titles, she was lonely. Because being a princess, Anya realized, was one of the loneliest things in the universe. Everyone around her back home wanted something from her. Alliances, approval, position. Nobody had ever simply wanted to know her. Until Daniel. One night, under the stars, Anya finally told him the truth. She told him who she really was. A princess, the heir to an empire more powerful than anything humans could imagine. She told him about the rule, the ancient law that royal blood could never mix with outsiders, especially not humans. She expected him to be afraid, or excited, or to treat her differently now that he knew the truth. He didn't. "You're still the same person I found in that forest," he said simply. "A title doesn't change who you are." That night, Anya realized something that terrified her more than any battle she had ever trained for. She had fallen in love with a human, and she knew, deep down, that this love could destroy everything, her position, her family's trust, maybe even the peace between worlds. But she also knew something else. For the first time in her entire life, She felt truly happy, and she wasn't ready to let that go. Word travels fast, even across galaxies. It didn't take long before Velmoran scouts, searching for the missing princess, picked up faint energy signals near Earth. Within days, a small recovery ship arrived, sent quietly by the Queen's most trusted general, a stern and loyal soldier named Commander Roth. When Roth found Anya, alive and safe, hidden away with a human, his first reaction was shock. His second reaction was fear of what the Queen would do if she found out the truth. Roth begged Anya to leave quietly, to come home immediately, to never speak of this again. But Anya refused. "I'm not leaving him behind," she said. "Not like this." Roth argued. He reminded her of her duty, her bloodline, her responsibility to the Empire. He reminded her that love between a princess and a human wasn't just forbidden. It was seen as an insult to their entire species' pride. Anya listened to all of it, and then she said something that stunned him. "If loving someone who is kind, honest, and good is against our laws, then maybe our laws are wrong." Roth had no answer for that. In the end, he agreed to bring both Anya and Daniel back to Velmora, but only under strict secrecy. He hoped that once Anya returned home, surrounded by her old life, she would forget about the human farmer and return to her royal duties. He was wrong. The moment their ship landed on Velmora, word spread through the palace like wildfire. Nobles whispered. Guards exchanged nervous glances. Even servants stopped their work just to catch a glimpse of the princess returning, with a human standing beside her. Daniel had never seen anything like Velmora before. Towers made of glowing crystal reached into the sky. Streets floated above the ground. Technology surrounded him that looked like something out of an impossible dream. He felt small, out of place, like an ant walking into a kingdom of giants. But he didn't let it scare him, because Anya stayed close beside him the entire time, refusing to let go of his hand. When they finally reached the throne room, the doors opened slowly, revealing Queen Isabel sitting on her throne of starlight, exactly as powerful and intimidating as every story described her. The room was filled with nobles, generals, and advisors, all waiting to see how this moment would unfold. Anya took a deep breath, held Daniel's hand tightly, and walked forward. And that is the exact moment the entire palace fell silent. The silence in that throne room lasted almost a full minute. No one had ever seen anything like it before. A princess of Velmora, standing before the queen, holding hands with a human. Queen Isabel's face didn't move. Her eyes studied her daughter, then shifted slowly to Daniel. For a moment, it looked like she might explode with anger, the way Commander Roth feared she would. But instead, she simply asked one question. "Do you understand what you have done?" Anya didn't look away. "Yes, Mother, I do." "You have broken a law older than our entire empire," the Queen said, her voice sharp enough to cut through stone. "A law meant to protect our bloodline, our power, our position among the stars." "I understand the law," Anya replied. "But I also understand something the law never taught me. Real strength isn't about bloodlines or power. It's about choosing what's right, even when it's difficult." Some nobles gasped. Others whispered angrily among themselves. Commander Roth stood frozen, unsure what to do. The Queen rose slowly from her throne, walking down the steps toward her daughter and the human man standing beside her. Guards tensed, hands ready near their weapons, waiting for a single signal. She stopped directly in front of Daniel, studying him closely. "You are just a farmer," she said. "You have no army, no power, no technology. What could you possibly offer my daughter that an entire empire cannot?" Daniel didn't flinch. He looked directly into the Queen's eyes and answered honestly. I can't offer her power, he said. I can't offer her an empire, but I can offer her honesty, kindness, and a love that doesn't ask her to be anything other than herself. The throne room fell silent again. For the first time in her long, powerful life, Queen Isabel didn't know what to say. Because deep down, buried under centuries of rules, war, and power, she remembered something she had long forgotten. She remembered a time, many years ago, before she became queen, when she too had loved someone the empire said she couldn't have. She had chosen duty over love back then, and she had regretted it every single day since. Slowly, the queen turned back toward the crowd of nobles watching in stunned silence. The law, she said quietly, was written to protect power, not love. And with that single sentence, everything began to change. The days that followed were filled with tension. Some nobles demanded that the ancient law be enforced immediately. Others argued that if the queen allowed this, it would weaken the empire's authority forever. But Queen Isabel had made her decision. She called for a full council meeting, the largest the empire had seen in decades. Leaders from 100 different planets gathered to hear her final judgment. Anya stood beside Daniel throughout the entire meeting, refusing to hide or apologize for her choice. When it was time for the queen to speak, the room grew silent once more. For 10,000 years, she began, our empire believed that power came only from bloodlines, armies, and control. We believed outsiders, especially humans, were beneath us. She paused, looking directly at her daughter. But my daughter has shown me something I had forgotten. Real power isn't about controlling others. It's about the courage to stand by what's right, even when the entire world stands against you. The queen turned to the council. From this day forward, the ancient law is abolished. Love will no longer be dictated by bloodlines or politics. Gasps filled the room. Some nobles looked furious. Others looked relieved. But no one dared speak against the queen's final decision. Anya felt tears in her eyes as she squeezed Daniel's hand tightly. In the following months, Velmora slowly began to change. For the first time in history, alliances between humans and Velmorans were no longer seen as weakness, but as strength. Trade between Earth and Velmora increased. Scientists from both worlds began working together, sharing knowledge that neither species had access to before. Daniel never became a king. He never wanted power or titles. He simply continued to live his life with honesty and kindness, the same way he always had, now simply doing it beside the woman he loved, in a palace instead of a farmhouse. And Anya, the princess who once believed love was a weakness, became known throughout the empire as the leader who redefined what true strength really meant. Years later, when historians spoke of that moment, the night the palace fell silent, they didn't describe it as a scandal or a broken rule. They described it as the beginning of a new era. An era built not on fear and bloodlines, but on courage, honesty, and love. And it all started with one simple farmer, who knelt beside a scared alien princess in a dark forest, and asked a simple question. Are you okay? Here's the twist most people miss when they hear this story. The ancient law wasn't originally created to protect the empire's power. According to old Velmoran records, it was created generations earlier by a heartbroken ruler, someone who once lost someone they loved to political enemies, and built the law out of fear, not strength. For 10,000 years, an entire empire lived by a rule built on someone else's grief. It took a scared princess, a quiet farmer, and one moment of unexpected courage to finally break a cycle that never should have existed in the first place. That's the real secret behind the silence in that palace. It wasn't shock. It wasn't anger. It was recognition. Deep down, everyone in that room realized the same truth Anya had already discovered, that love, honesty, and courage will always be stronger than fear. If this opened your eyes to what real strength actually means, you're going to want to see what happens next, because Anya and Daniel's story didn't end there. Their choice changed an entire empire and set off events that reached far beyond Velmora's borders. Let's recap what we just discovered. A princess who seemed to have everything was actually the loneliest person in her empire, until one honest human showed her something power never could. An ancient law that seemed unbreakable was never really about protecting an empire. It was built from someone else's old fear. And real strength, as this story reminds us, was never about bloodlines, armies, or titles. It's about choosing honesty and courage, even when it's the hardest thing to do. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. It helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. And if you want more stories like this one, powerful HFY sci-fi tales about humans proving their worth among the stars, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss the next chapter. For those who want even deeper stories like this every single week, check the link in the description to join our community, where we share exclusive HFY stories before anyone else sees them. Now I want to hear from you. If you were in Daniel's position, meeting a hurt alien princess for the first time, what would you have done? Would you have helped her, just like Daniel did? Or would fear have stopped you? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one. Thank you for watching until the very end. I'll see you in the next story.